What's up, you guys? It's Matt here. So I'm not sure if this is going to be a long one or not. I wanted to go into the interview, the coinage interview. Now, the first 10 minutes is breaking down cryptocurrency and what has happened with Terra Luna Classic, and just in general, we understand stable coins and just a bunch of random information, but information that I don't think is really necessary to the entire interview. 10 minutes worth of setting up the interview, not something that I agree with, but I'm going to skip that. Make sure you guys hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We're going to go into this, and hopefully there's no demonetization. If there is, then I won't post it. And if there isn't, feel free to go and subscribe to Coinage. I'm sure they'll have other stuff. They just need to dial it down with all of the build up, because the build up is not necessary. A 10-minute build up is not necessary for this exclusive interview. So I want to see what Terra founder KWON has to say about Terra Luna Classic, and maybe get some questions answered that a lot of people wanted to get answered. So if you could, make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell for more videos like this one. Also, if you guys want to follow me on Twitter at Perry8K, you can follow me there. Feel free to go and check out the original video, which is on Coinage. They have a Coinage YouTube channel. Feel free to go ahead and check that out. Currently they have about 3,300 views and 500 subscribers. Throw some subscribers their way. I don't know what they have planned for the future, but mainly I guess they're going to talk about coins and different investments or different cryptocurrency investments. So anyways, let's get into this and let's get this interview sort of out of the way, and hopefully answers a bunch of questions. So let's go.
To see if Terra's collapse is really just a case of failure or a fraud. What do you point to as kind of the easiest defense of it's not fraud?
I don't think it's like a morality issue, but it's like coming in from like a loss of this magnitude, and especially touching upon an industry that requires a lot of technical background knowledge to be able to understand. It's just like very hard to process all of that and then come to a balanced conclusion when there's so much pain and anger in the air.
To see it all play out in a span of 72 hours, were you even surprised at like how quickly it unraveled?
I just didn't think this would happen. Thinking about this and then trying to build this ecosystem and community was basically what I spent the last 5 years on every waking moment. I just haven't found the words to describe what that feels like, but I'm sure that a lot of people in the community that lost their money, life savings, and different projects that we're building on top of Terra probably went through similar and it's quite possibly worse experiences.
And as far as like a creator of anything like this, I mean,
it's brutal.
Well, to think about it, when it comes to, people losing money, or if he thought that this was going to happen, I mean, he had clear signs that people were thinking about attacking it, that it was going to be something that you're going to need to find a way to protect, add some security. We've seen some tweets, we've seen some responses, we've seen all of these things that I'm not necessarily saying that it could have been avoided, because we don't know the steps to avoid it. But they could have thought about it a little bit more and understood that if someone attacked, what would we do, right? Would it be better to have money in reserves, not either in a bank or in a wallet somewhere that can automatically transfer out to, basically get UST back to where it needs to get to? What can you do? Right, there's other things that you could have done, and other securities that you could have put in place. In my opinion, I feel like you could have found something.
Obviously, like in hindsight, a lot of the beliefs and sort of the conjectures that I had made were wrong.
Trust is at the core, I think, ironically, in a lot of these trustless systems. It does come down to like, do you trust the people running these things? What do you say is the thing to, no, you can trust me?
I think if you were in this for personal benefit, that is probably the dumbest way to try to get that personal benefit as possible. Why put in 5 years, stake your entire reputation, name your daughter Luna, and then just have, for a brief moment in time, be the most hated person on the internet? And I think in terms of healing wounds, the best that I can do is to just be upfront with everything that happened. just admit that I was wrong.
It was pretty elaborate in the way that it worked. Yield-bearing stablecoins were a thing. Anchor comes around though, and it's not 8%, it's 20%. And it sounded like when that was set up, there were maybe some employees that were a little uncomfortable with the idea of 20%. It was far higher than what was out there.
Actually, just to set the record straight, sort of the internal consensus of what people wanted to do with the interest rate was several thousand% APR, like with Anchor in the beginning. And it's not a function of like them trying to make things unsustainable is a good idea. So what was a lower interest rate in the beginning turned out to be, pretty high.
At what point?
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely see that 20% is definitely high. Like you look at investing $1 million into anything, and the highest return that you would expect to have is probably somewhere around 10%. Even 10% could seem high sometimes over the year. But to receive 20% is definitely like, okay, this is not only the highest rate I've ever seen, but also double that, right? So it's definitely a difficult thing to take in, but people see that and they're like, all right, well, some people had success. I want to have success too. But that the last week or 2 weeks or month that people were getting in there expecting a lot of success didn't gain as much success that they wanted, because the whole entire thing collapsed. So anything that they did gain in the amount of coins that they're getting, they ended up losing everything in the value of the total amount. Now, some people lost hundreds, some people lost thousands, some people lost millions, and some people, lost tens of millions. And it's crazy to say that, people had this much invested, but then when you think about it, it's like, a lot of people believed in this, and some people wrote it from the ground up. So from where it was at the starting point all the way until where it was at the high, and then making those sells. And then there's also some people that wrote it all the way through the highs and the lows, expecting this to be worth so much more than what it was. So I don't know. It's always interesting, different takes that he has.
Point maybe on the run up, when you saw Anchor eventually capture almost $17 billion, in that journey, was there a point where you said, we're untouchable?
I felt like every day UST was getting stronger than the previous day.
There's also another operation going on behind the scenes, though, at the same time. That did seem, I guess, different from what the original promise of UST and Luna always was, which was it was an algorithmic stablecoin that functioned perfectly without the need for a reserve.
So we felt that by adding multiple different types of collateral, starting with Bitcoin, UST had a real chance to become the decentralized money for all of crypto.
But I'm curious where that kind of plan came from and what made you want to introduce that at that time.
So we started to do that with Bitcoin because we believe that it's the most resilient, the least biased digital currency on the planet. If we were optimizing for like economic stability, we probably would have built up a reserve in stablecoins, other stablecoins. I think on some other level, I believe too strongly in Bitcoin. I honestly didn't think it would fall this much. And I know that, from time to time in its history, Bitcoin has gone down 80% every now and then. But my thinking back then was like the amount of economic output that's been built in crypto, the amount of people that have come in and started to build in this industry is unparalleled compared to all the other points in time.
So that's what I've been saying when it comes to this crash that we've seen, and this is why I feel like I've been right in a way. Now, I did think that it was going to drop. I didn't think that it was going to drop more than 75%, which is what it ended up dropping, 75%, and it didn't hit the 80% mark, and just slightly above where the last drop was at like 84% or something like that. So that's my thinking as well, is that so many people have come into crypto, so many people love crypto, that literally you can ask, hey, you investing? And they go, yeah, I'm investing in stocks, I'm investing in crypto. It's probably, at least 50 or 60% of the time that people are going to say crypto in those investments as well, because they just want to be involved in what you should be investing in, what the popular thing is to invest into, and see the growth in something like cryptocurrency. So that's where my mind was throughout this whole entire crash we've seen. But again, when it comes to Terra Luna Classic, I feel like, or Terra Luna at that point, I feel like they should have had some sort of backing from real life currency, like the actual like US dollar, or something that has the value of a US dollar, right? So if you wanted to put it into another stable coin to pin it in some way, I don't know how you would do it, but you basically put it in another thing that's more stable than what you have there so that it holds its value, right? So basically that stable coin is backing on another stable coin, which could have a massive amount in that stable coin or a massive amount in regular dollars. I don't know how you would go about doing it. Again, I'm still not new to all of this, but still new to how the entire security structure would be, if that makes sense.
I felt like it was starting to display resilience as a decentralized, pristine type of commodity, but I was wrong.
Let's actually walk through the timeline for what actually happened here, though, and that kind of begins over the weekend. And UST dips slightly below peg. Twitter personality Do Kwon seems very calm and collected. Do Kwon in person talking to the Terra team as this is starting to unfold. What's happening on that day?
So I was in Singapore. I wake up in the morning, and then I think the curve pool was imbalanced because somebody had done like a very large trade. So I think the initial trade was like $84 million, and then collectively it had built up to like a few hundred million. But then like the sentiment on Twitter started to get worse, and then there started to be more people that were trading against the curve pools. So the amount of sell pressure that we were seeing, started to get worse and worse. So we started to put together a $2 billion round, like in the middle of the night, and the news leaked. Once the news leaked, we started to see massive shorts pile up against Luna. So the value of the tokens that we were ready to sell just basically got decimated.
When the deal didn't come through, what was the situation in the war room at that point?
When I was trying to do the round, it wasn't so much that I thought like the peg would be irrecoverable. So like you got to understand, like I've been through multiple of these crises before, and then the peg always recovered.
At what point did the discussions in the war room shift from, all right, look, we tried everything, didn't pan out?
So when I went into like a mini state of shock, I think I didn't notice, but I think people started to like get up and get some sleep, because for the past few days, like most people in those places just hadn't been sleeping at all.
Yeah, how much sleep did you get during that whole week?
For like 8 days, I don't think I slept at all.
You pulled 8 straight all-nighters?
So 7 nights, and then I think I had 1 burrito throughout the entire time.
Yeah, I was gonna say in that time period, I would be like stressing the hell out because you don't know what's happening and you don't really control the narrative. You can say, well, you control the narrative. You don't really control the outcome. So you see negativity and people react in a massive way. A lot of times, I'm not blaming it on people, but a lot of times people can overreact to a situation, and that's what a lot of people, especially like attackers of something, they're hoping for an overreaction, because an overreaction creates way more money than what they invested. Because if they put, let's say, $100 million in short positions and they expect an overreaction, they expect a reaction of more than $100 million, like 200, 300, maybe even $500 million that go into the overreaction portion versus the initial hit. So I see where he's coming from. I mean, I probably wouldn't sleep. I would imagine he did sleep some, like naps here and there, but I've been through those times where it's actually stressful and you really don't get sleep, and your body seems like it can function off of sleep or off of no sleep because it just feels normal. It feels like the stress just becomes overwhelming.
Burrito?
1 burrito, half a burrito. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I just didn't notice the passage of time. So like even now, if you were to ask me what happened during the day, what happened at night, I just wouldn't be able to tell, because I just, I barely got up and was, like it was just like all a blur.
It was dark.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a dark. The Terra community boards, there were talks of suicide and people who had lost life savings. My co-founder had a family friend who killed himself too. It was just, there's a lot of stories like that.
Right.
I mean,
That is horrible. If you can learn anything from this, is that no matter what, something can happen to anything. So why would you put your entire life savings into one position, right? Why would you take a mortgage or second mortgage out on your house? Why would you take out a loan to buy this position that, anything could happen to? I have never, like, I barely even trade with margin. So I have never done something like that to where I will go like extreme YOLO on a position. Right? I can go all in where I can take the money that I have available right now and throw it all in on a position, but I will never take money that I do not have and throw it on a position, because then it's pointless. Yes, you can make a ton of money out of it, but when it goes bad, it goes really bad.
What do you tell the people that were impacted by this?
Yeah, so after the chain halted, I spent a couple of days calling a lot of the people that I'd personally talked to in the Terra community. Um, it's the calls were rough.
Is there like a part of you that maybe would want to walk back what you said before, though, around particularly the language you used around people who flagged some of this stuff before?
I think I developed like sort of an entertaining alter ego to, match the community that I was engaging with. In retrospect, if you were to
Hold up. That's a good way of putting it to start, but then to match the community that he was engaging with, I don't know, calling people poor and all that stuff. I feel like that's not matching the community too much, from what I understand. I mean, I wasn't invested in Terra Luna, and I didn't ever question about Terra Luna. I got questions, but I have my skepticism about investing into it, and it stopped right there.
to ask me whether like the manner in which some of these comments were conveyed were cringe, yes.
How has the experience that unfolded with Terraform changed KWON?
And I think like the biggest learning is like I have a lot of clarity on the things that I enjoy doing. So I like this moment where you sort of have an idea of what you think the future should look like, and then that sort of converges to the present because of the work that you've done.
I mean, what was your personal loss around all this too?
Like quantified in dollars, or
Because I think you were a billionaire on paper, at least, when this was when it was doing well.
sure, yeah.
And if you're attached to this project and it goes to zero.
So like one of the jokes that people tell each other, like when markets turn bad, is down bad or down horrendous, right? And the word that I use to describe what happened here is down infinite. I mean, I just want to make it perfectly clear. The way that I thought about Terra Luna was, this was essentially my life. I put my actions where my beliefs are. And I bet big, and I think I lost.
But he didn't answer the question. Sorry, I got to fly right here. He didn't answer the question. I'm pretty sure we all know that he didn't lose a lot. Now, he lost a lot by, his billionaire status and being able to make sure that this, turns into whatever he believed it to be. But in the end, it's about maintaining some wealth and being able to pivot and move to either the next thing like he did with Terra 2.0, or it's about bringing the community together and understand how Terra Luna can get back to where it was, and then figure out what was wrong. What we want to hear, what I want to hear at least, is you understand what went wrong, and if there ever is an opportunity to get back to where we were, I know how to fix it. That's what I want to hear. Because if you have a security, some sort of security blanket, I guess, or an idea of what the security would be to back that algorithm, it could be so much better. But he's not giving off that vibe at all. It makes it seem like he's just like, I failed, I gave up on that, and now we have this new thing here. Now, he hasn't talked about Terra 2 or anything like that, but I don't know if that's going to come up.
Overnight, the home of KWON's co-founder, Daniel Shin, was raided by Korean prosecutors.
What does this mean for Do?
Like we were talking about yesterday, the Chai payment system, the startup that they co-founded, was always kind of different than Terra. So Terra was kind of built as an offshoot and Daniel Shin moved off of Terra to focus just on Chai.
Yeah.
And, they're friends. Daniel Shin officiated Do's wedding, and now he's still in Korea kind of facing this.
Yeah. But if you were going to do an investigation and go after the top guy, you circle around him and you slowly come in.
I mean, this isn't a legal question, since you're not a lawyer, I'm not a lawyer, but what are you prepared to face?
Well, in terms of, like dealing with due process, right? It's not a question of what you are prepared to face.
Yeah.
It's a question of how you are going to face them. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, after the crash, your legal team all left. We're doing this interview now because you want to talk about what happened truthfully and transparently. I don't know if you're talking to other lawyers now and they're saying, yo, you probably shouldn't do this. Are they?
I mean, no lawyer is going to be happy, but it is what it is.
But around those who are now attached to this, right? We were talking about Daniel Shin, your co-founder, and last night the news that prosecutors raided his house to go in and try and figure out what happened here. I mean, is that a decision? How do you feel about that impacting him now?
Zach, whenever you ask questions about me feeling bad, like the default answer is always going to be that I feel terrible, obviously. And especially given it's been a while since he stepped away from the company, I don't think, whatever happened here has anything to do with him.
He's still in Korea. Former and current Terraform Labs employees can't leave Korea. Does part of you say I should go back?
So right now it's kind of hard to make that decision because we've never been in touch with the investigators. They've never charged us with anything.
But I mean, as you look back at things, what's your take on, I guess, how you define fraud?
It's a long pause, man.
Well, if you knew something that wasn't true, and then you argue that that was true for personal enrichment or whatever purpose that might be, then that's fraud.
When it comes to that, though, and kind of the use of UST and the Korean stablecoin on Terra through Chai, and if it was starting to unwind because not a lot of people were using it, and if that was in March when it was completely done, I think on the Palm podcast, which was after that, you're still talking about Chai as being a reason to be bullish on the Terra ecosystem.
I didn't know that they paused the March 18th thing until recently when the Wall Street Journal asked us about when did Chai pause, Terra on-ramps and off-ramps.
Yeah.
That's because I was no longer involved in Chai management.
But this is your best friend's company, and one that you said you built and were part of. And so I feel like, if there was anything that might be in your radar of things that could potentially change and weaken maybe a bit of the risk to UST, I feel like that might be something that would come up.
No, I think you're right. I think if I said good things about something, good news about something, then by the principle of parity, I should have responsibility to say the bad things as well, especially if the good stuff that I said didn't pan out.
But I mean, something like that, overlooking risks, is that a crime in your mind?
As we were thinking about trying to build UST, we've, and I think TFL in general, all.
I'll say this, right? As you look at his last question, overlooking risks, is that a crime? I wouldn't necessarily say that overlooking risks is a crime because U.S. companies do it all the time, right? Where they know what the risks are to investing into a position, they know what the risks are to an organization. Now, no way am I defending anything that he has here, but I just want to play, devil's advocate, on both sides, whatever is devil's advocate here, right? I want to let people understand that yes, by some definition, some things can be deemed a crime. But by the simple terms of applying it elsewhere, you can't really consider, and I'm not saying that that he saw the risks and he decided to continue to push something. to continue to push people to invest. Um, because a lot of times when you feel as though, let's say AMC for a reason, right? For because I can't figure out any other business that's out there. AMC, they decide or they know that revenue is down. They know that they are risking bankruptcy in a way throughout this whole entire 2020 situation. However, they're still telling people, hey, come enjoy movies at our movie theaters. Yeah, there's the risk, that you you are going into a movie theater that may not be open anymore. There's a risk that you may be having people invest into a position that may end up going bankrupt in a couple of hours. There's always that risk. But are you ignoring the risk there? No, you're just trying to make sure that you avoid that risk happening by trying to fix things with that revenue source. So that's devil's advocate, but obviously anything. We don't really know what's exactly going through his mind and what's the truth here, how much he did know. But yeah.
All the people that chose to work here and all of the sort of the key builders in the Terra ecosystem, their primary objective, in my mind, was to try to build the best decentralized money possible.
Yeah.
And I think all the things that they've said was in allegiance to that goal.
Again, let me ask this just as a question that people might ask looking at these facts. Like, does that make you an Elizabeth Holmes?
I don't think so.
No.
No. Yeah.
Why not?
Well, I'm not too familiar with the Theranos story, but didn't she take like medicine that wasn't working or like a blood tester that wasn't working and then it could potentially hurt people?
It was mostly overselling the product in what it could do.
I thought the product could do nothing.
Exactly.
I don't think that's the case here. I think whereas we tended to highlight the good stuff about the products that were built on top of Terra stablecoins, I think everything that excited us about Terra stablecoins were true.
But this is a pretty important question. If it's called a stablecoin and its point is to be stable, someone could look at UST and say, this product did nothing.
Yeah,
fair or not fair?
I think the right analogy there would be if like the blood testers were working for a while and then after some time it just totally stopped working, then I would think it would be the same analogy. But this is different, right? Like the blood testers never worked and then she lied about it and then said that they did. For Terra stablecoins, it was working beautifully throughout the entire history that it was. And the fact that it was working perfectly was visible in the order books and was present in all the integrations.
Yeah, I think I'd add to that because I do think obviously it was working for quite some time, but I think the aggression, like how aggressive they were with the APY, how aggressive they were with basically giving people money for holding the stable coin, it was something that was the fall or the crash was inevitable if you didn't find the right percentage. Because if they did choose to go with the thousands of percent over 20%, then it would have been a huge problem to where it happened a lot quicker and we wouldn't have seen a $40 billion crash. We would have probably seen, I don't know, a $2 billion crash, something like that, but way less of a crash than we would have seen with $40 billion because it wouldn't have gotten up that high, right? We wouldn't have seen Terra get up that high, Terra Luna get up that high, and UST remain stable for that long. Now, I think it also, as I keep talking about this, I keep going into security. And I feel like if they would have had some form of security, something that they could put aside, don't necessarily need a bank for that to house that. And you have billions of dollars there, whether it's within wallets and other stable coins, whatever you have, you're putting it aside. And now if anything does get attacked, you can back that with this billions of dollars that you do have so that there's no ever chance of it absolutely collapsing there. But again, that's just one idea. And I'm sure there's plenty of ideas there that can stabilize this thing. And to say that it never worked or it never was a thing, that's not the case. It was stable for a while. We've even seen USDT become unstable, right? At one point, it did end up stabilizing because it's backed by, real money, and that money can obviously flow in. I mean, allegedly, right? We know all of the different different thoughts and comments on USDT. But yeah, I mean, I feel as though uh, he's right there that it did work in the beginning, but something just happened to where it became unstable. So
In the open source and transparent manner of crypto until it stopped working.
You're a smart guy, and you know stablecoins probably better than everyone in the world, I think. And you knew the risk around depegging in the fact that every other stablecoin in history, algorithmic stablecoins, had failed.
Right.
So it's either KWON was overconfident in his project, and in retrospect, no one wants to admit to being overconfident because it makes you look dumb, or KWON was lying about the eventuality of this. Which one is it?
So looking back, this seems super irrational, but you got to put yourself in the shoes of a founder, and the ecosystem is inching close to $100 billion. If you've had a series of wins and you get to that scale, then like you almost don't think that you could fail.
You were a crypto god at that point, basically.
I wouldn't say God. I would say that we had the confidence and the trust of a lot of people in and out of the industry. And that made us very successful.
So that's a good way of answering it. It's not necessarily overconfidence on his by his standards, I guess, but overconfidence when it comes to the entire team, right? The entire team was very confident because they were winning so much, and everything that you had, it seemed like you won up that, or at least doubled the output of what you thought. And when you have that every single time, just like if you like say trade in the stock market and you day trade, you have a series of wins. Maybe it's like a week or 2 weeks to where you're winning nonstop. You feel like you can do this and that you're an expert in this, but then you have that larger loss and it hits you um, like someone just threw a rock directly at your temple. Like that's the way that it hits you, especially when that loss is very, very big. And what we're seeing here is that loss was very big. I've had some of those losses. Everybody day trading has had some of those losses. People that invest, if you don't have some of those losses, be prepared to have one. And it will happen no matter how careful you are. Just make sure you minimize the amount that that loss is. And hopefully, if 10,000 is a lot, hopefully it's 8,000. Hopefully you save $2,000 from that loss. If that loss is $100,000, good luck with all of that. But I understand where he's coming from.
Just the reality of it is we tried to build the best currency in the world, and it just didn't work.
I mean, that was one thing that stood out yesterday when we were talking. You actually kind of seemed all right with it.
You cannot be emotional about markets, right? You can't blame people for shorting. You can't call people idiots for longing.
In terms of, you're not trying to prove a conspiracy here, but someone attacking the community, it was, this is the time to strike and take this thing down. And if that's the case, it's a little bit more calculated.
Yeah, so if you're asking me whether there was a mole at TFL, that's probably yes. Whether somebody tried to take advantage of that particular opportunity, I would say that the answer is yes. But if those opportunities existed, then the blame is on the person that presented those vulnerabilities in the first place.
Who is that?
That's me, right? So I and I alone am responsible for any weaknesses that could have been presented for a short seller to start to take profit.
That is hard to do for someone to come out that was probably that overly confident about it, to come out and say something like that. You were responsible. Like when he said, like the person that basically allowed them to do that or gave them that opportunity to short it or to gain those profits or whatever. It's on that person. And when he said it's me, it literally gave me chills because of the fact that it's hard to do. It is very, very hard to do. And it's 100% true for someone to come out and say, no matter that, they did attack, no matter that they did have the shorts that came through or, whatever was coupled with it, you can't get upset about how the market works because the market works based on reactions. And if the event is big enough, the reaction is huge. And probably can change the outcome of a situation, right? If the reaction went sort of south, and you didn't see the overreaction like we did, then maybe it would have been a different story, but you should have never given them the opportunity to attack, to create the reaction. That's the idea. So it's definitely something that I didn't expect him to say, but kudos to him for saying it.
And I guess it's fair to ask and make sure that it wasn't you.
Are you asking whether I shorted?
Yeah.
I've never shorted a cryptocurrency in my life, let alone Luna and UST.
I don't even know how to
When
do
you think
that.
about your daughter too, though, you talk about why you named her Luna, your dearest creation named after your greatest invention. What does that mean for her? And what does it mean for you as a father?
Well, so let's just say that I have an
Is he calling him a bad father? That is a horrible thing to say. Guy from Coinage, I don't know what your name is because I didn't listen in the beginning, but you shouldn't ask that question. That is a rude question. If that was Mike Tyson on the other side, he probably would have hit you. I'm pretty sure he would have done that.
an incentive to make sure that her name isn't something that she should be ashamed of, but something that she can be proud of. Yeah, we're not going to change her name or anything like that. I think it's an important part of our family's history. But I plan to be building here for a long time. And if my thesis is right, then I think what I spend time doing over the next 20 years is going to be more meaningful than what happened over the last 6 weeks.
The whole idea behind crypto is that it's trustless, that the tech saves you from having to trust anyone you interact with or any middlemen in between. But that tech was built by humans, and those we're still stuck having to trust. That's the great paradox at the heart of this story. KWON may have set out to build a trailblazing trustless machine, but when panic and faith in the system hit a breaking point, people lost trust it would hold. Terra was designed for stability, but what it produced was speculation. And in the end, that was a death spiral waiting to happen. As Do told us, he's still building his new blockchain, Luna 2.0. And even as Terra pivots away from its bread and butter, other algorithmic stablecoins have already rushed in to fill the void. In most cases, their promises are no different than any of the growing list of failed attempts. And yet again, it won't just be the technology that people will have to trust. It'll be the teams building it, shipping it, and yes, selling it. Look, no one can predict the future, but we do know history often rhymes. I'm Zach Guzman. This was Coinage. Stay safe out there.
All right, that's his name's Zach. I got his name. But I'll give my thoughts. I feel like my thoughts need to be in a separate video. This is already a 37-minute video, so I'm gonna leave it at that. But I'm gonna give my entire thoughts to what I saw with the interview. Now I don't know when this was recorded. I would imagine, I don't know, yesterday, a week, 2 weeks, I don't know. But he said 6 weeks, so it must have been somewhere, in July or so, maybe June, probably July, right? But yeah, I'll give my thoughts in like a whole nother video on what I thought of the Do Kwon interview, and if I felt like things were left out. I don't know when this was recorded, so I want to put some emphasis on that. But anyways, let me know if you like this video. Let me know your thoughts on what is going on with this video down below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell for more videos like this one. And if you guys want to follow me on Twitter at PerryAK, you can follow me over there. Don't forget, guys, I have a golf channel. If you guys want to check out my golf channel, it's Matt Perry Golf. So if you want to go ahead and check that out, the link will be on my page. It'll probably be in the description as well. Feel free to go and check my golf channel out. I love playing golf and I want to get better, so it's more of a reason to subscribe. Anyways, I'm going to get out of here. I'll catch you guys in the next one.